Welcome to the Weekly Poker Showdown, brought to you by Party Poker. I am your host, Jaime Staples, and this week we have a very special episode. John Duthie joins me on the podcast. He's coming off a 5th place finish in the Millions Online event for, I think, around 890,000. And at the time of recording this was just like yesterday that this happened. So I get a conversation with him literally 24 hours after it went down. Talk all things about his poker career, how he started in poker, winning $1 million at the Isle of Man back before I even knew poker was a thing, starting the EPT, president of Party Poker Live now, and of course the crazy run yesterday and the things that he's learned throughout. So I personally learned so much through this conversation, and some of the things he said I'm really going to be thinking about in a bunch of ways going forward in my career. So great conversation. I really hope you check that out. But before we do, we're going to touch on two things, the live and online results. Let's start off with online results, getting into that now. Kicking off with the online results, we obviously need to talk about Millions Online, the $10,300 buy-in event that beat the 20 million guarantee. Massive 2.6 million up for grabs for first place. And we saw it come down to the final 27 players going into the day. $63,270 is what all of them were guaranteed going into it. And we saw Jungle Man Dan, no word on if that's the official Jungle Man. I don't think it is, but they were the first casualty of the night. Team Party Poker Pro Isaac Haxton was the other Party Poker Pro to make the final and third day, but they busted as the short stack in 25th place for $63,270. Bappa burst the final table bubble when they cashed out in 9th place, worth a cool $184,537. So GG to Bappa, and then on to the final table. So we streamed this final table, actually the whole final 27 on Twitch. That is on the Party Poker TV channel, so if you want to rewatch, you can go there, check it out, see some of our analysis. Really interesting tournament, and actually not that long to go from 27 to a winner. I think it was 5 hours and 15 minutes. So sort of condensed and very manageable. In the end, Bill Clucka was 8th place finisher for $316,000. We had Pal Pal 012, 015 for $474. Cloud King out in 6th place. John Duthie with the $869,000. There it is. Rank 1 Global was the first millionaire at the final table, 1 of 4. No Means Yes with 1.3 million. And the two made a deal heads up. Lucio taking down 2.2 million and French Sniper 2.25 million, which is a little bit more than the 2.22 million. So French Sniper is the champion of the Millions Online event for 2019. A huge congratulations. I can't imagine what it'd be like to win $2.2 million in a 3-day online tournament. Absolutely crazy. So huge congrats to them. Let's talk about some of the other online poker tournaments which get dwarfed by this event, but you would expect that, of course. There's actually a $25,000 buy-in going on during the Millions Online series. This was added by the request of some players, and it reached 62 players. So it's guaranteed $1 million, but it crushed that guarantee by over $500,000. So pretty incredible. Down to the final 8, we saw Jason Kuhn bust out in 5th place, Party Poker Pro for $108,000. Triple Sexy with the runner-up, $341K, but the eventual winner was R Moral 11, or Ryan Moral, for $503,000. So congrats to Ryan on that $500,000 score in the 25K. Last tournament we're going to cover here on Party Poker was the big game on Sunday. 5,200 buy-in, 500K guarantee. The prize pool ended up hitting 720,000. 144 players bought in, and No Limit Hold'em, in all caps, that's the name, ended up winning the tournament for 165K. Runner-up was player _ 99887766. Anatoly Filatov, a guest that we've had on the podcast. If you missed that, definitely check out that episode. Really great to talk with him. NL Profit, as he goes online, another Party Poker Pro, $86,400 for a 3rd place finish in that one. So huge congrats to Anatoly. Heading over to PokerStars, let's talk about the $2,100 8-max progressive knockouts. We saw Mike Sir Watson, definitely a name that most people will be familiar with if you follow poker at all. Ended up winning the event for 117K this past Sunday. Stacked final table. We have Simon Higgins. We have Renz Feenstra. We have Bill Lewinsky, definitely someone I used to battle with quite a bit. Sick one, Klaus Sebrecht. Sorry if I screwed up your name there, my friend. So absolutely the packed final table with a lot of great players. But as I said, Mike Watson, Sir Watts, was the champion for 117,000. And PokerStars also had a 10K PLO 6 max going on, 500,000 guarantee, and the prize pool made it up to 690K. Pascal Lafrancois from Canada, my home country, ended up winning the event for 186,000. So that's all the online events this week. But now let's go check out some of the live poker action. On the live poker side of things, we have EPT Prague going on. The EPT Prague National is actually happening right now, which is €1,100 buy-in. The former main event champ, Myher Van Putten, making a deep run. 32 players left out of a field of 2,452 at the time of this recording. They remain at 10 full levels of 60 minutes on day 2. All remaining players are aiming for a slice of the €2.3 million prize pool and have €7,390 guaranteed so far. The second thing you might want to know on the live poker front, if you're a Poker Go subscriber, Rob's game going on in Vegas, huge cash game. I didn't get a chance to watch it myself last night for day 1, but I saw a screenshot and there was a bunch of people with $1 million stacks. So incredible cash game poker happening. I'm sure there'll be some clips on social media, and consider getting Poker Go as well and watching that, because I mean, it's not often you could see 1 million stacks battling it out. Some of the highest stakes players in the game. So pretty incredible. Best of luck to Rob. Hopefully we have some good results to report next week. Let's get into the interview now with John Duthie, just to give you a little bit of background as to how influential this guy has been in the poker world. He founded the European Poker Tour back in, I think, 2003, 2004. This is a show that's been on TV for 11 years now. He is now the president of Party Poker Live, so that's obviously a big thing. He took down a tournament back before I even knew what poker was for £1 million on the Isle of Man. He's got second place at World Series of Poker Heads Up. He finished runner-up to Mike Sexton in the 2003 Heads Up Championship in Paris, France. He got second in a 25K Heads Up Scoop event. He played the first ever World Championship of Online Poker on PokerStars, coming second place. So, I mean, an amazing poker pedigree, you know, like he's done so much in the game. And of course, he just came 5th place, you know, 10 years later after some of these events in the 10K Millions Online that just happened for 860,000. But in the interview, we talk about so much more too, like what he's learned from starting back in the beginning to where he's at now, and the difference in the game and the characters, and what's good about that, and maybe what's not so good, and where we need to go forward from here. So really an incredible guy. I love this conversation. I think you're going to love him as well. So without further ado, John Duthie. Joining me today on the podcast, I have Mr. John Duthie. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
No, my pleasure.
So there's so many things that we can talk about. Your history in poker is long, as I was sort of doing a bit of research going into today, learning about, you know, you starting the European Poker Tour back in 2004. You know, a lot of huge live poker results back in that time as well. Currently the president of Party Poker Live. But I think we need to start with the recent news coming off a massive score yesterday in the Millions Online event, the $10,000 buy-in, a 5th place finish for right around 900,000, right?
Yeah.
Right around there.
870, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, it was just great.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, day 1 and day 2, sort of leading up to the final, because we watched the final on Twitch, but what were the first 2 days of the tournament like to get in that position?
They would, well, firstly, I mean, I qualified in the last minute, like you actually. You did too, actually. I remember seeing you, and I was watching you Twitch at the same time as playing my day 2. Yeah, my day 2. I was watching you, or was it day 1D, or did you play 1B?
I played 1A and 1B, both.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was 1B then, because I qualified through a 1K satellite, the same as you did. And if we're trying to remember going through the day. I mean, day 1B, it was just that just felt like a standard day of poker and just survival and trying to get chip up, really.
Right.
And pretty much the same for day 2. There was no I don't think. I mean, obviously, I made a few sort of moves here and there. I had hands too. I can't. I'm not. I'm really not. It's awful because I think a lot of people you speak to would go, "Oh yeah, well, you know, halfway through day two, I had this particular situation where." And I'm damned if I can remember any of the hands in day, you know, in 1B and day two. I mean, even yesterday, you know, there's only one or two hands, key hands that I remember yesterday, which you and Mona were watching, you know, and so the king queen twice were obviously the crucial money making hands yesterday.
Yes, all in about like 10, 10, 9, 8 big ones. One of these even 5. One hit the king on the river, one hit the queen on the river to double up and stay alive. So those those were intense.
I mean, those were the key moments, I think, because I'd been nursing I misplayed a hand early on, and actually got quite annoyed with myself because we started the day. I think I was 13th in chips, but I only had like 26 bigs or something, or 25 maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot. And then I made the mistake of, I think after about sort of 20 minutes or so, I think I must have got a bit bored, and I sort of opened under the gun +2 or in with king 10 offsuit, I think it was, right. And then continued on a queen high board, and then continued again when I picked up a gut shot on a 9 turn, and then an ace came on the river, and I was contemplating moving all in, and then I thought, I just don't feel good about it.
Right.
I don't feel good about this. I think I'm going to get called. And anyway, because I checked behind, and he showed, I think he had queens and 9s, so he turned 2 pairs. He had a big hand, and he was just trapping me all the way. So that took me way down in chips right early on. And then I was hovering. I don't know if you remember it, but I was hovering around there for ages.
You were short stacked pretty much the whole way through after that hand. You know, at one point down to 4 big blinds. Just, I mean, clearly just waiting for anything to happen. But you ended up riding that all the way to 5th place, of course. So like, you know, maneuver through.
That was just classic, literally push fold strategy. You know, that was it. I was just literally playing proper poker,
right? Really,
and because I also knew that I also felt really quite comfortable. I felt really quite positive. You know how I don't know if you get this, but sometimes when you're playing tournaments, you feel really zoned in. You feel in the zone. You feel very, you know, you just feel like you actually could win this.
Right. Yes.
And I really felt like that yesterday. I felt I could really win it. I felt very comfortable. I didn't feel under pressure at all. I felt I was playing well. And then when I got when we literally got to when I got the ace king, really, I thought, right, if this holds, you know what I mean, well, holds. If I win this hand, I could really, you know, go on to win it. But oddly enough, when he hit the 10, or the jack, I can't remember which one he hit, but I kind of was all right about it. I wasn't really that bothered because I just felt that I'd won so much money with such a short stack,
right?
That I felt that I'd already won. I felt like I'd already won the tournament. You know, anything after 220K was just a bonus to me, really.
Right. Yes. And so 5th place was 880,000 approximately. 1st place was 2.6 million. So I mean, crazy swings there, but I empathize with that position, though. I get it. It's like when I busted way earlier in the tournament, 1B, you know, I lost ace king to aces. Yeah, and I kind of had the same feeling where I was just like, I was totally at peace with the idea of losing in that spot. I don't know if it's because it's a big event and you recognize you're against good opponents, and it's just one of those things where, well, you did what you did and life moves on. I'm not sure, but I understand that feeling.
I think if you play, you know, the thing is, if you don't make a mistake, like because I'd made a mistake with the king 10 early on and it was stupid. I spoke to myself and I thought, right, look, just stop, you know, just play properly. You know how to play properly. Just play properly. And so I think because I played properly and it worked, and it actually worked out in my favor, I felt okay. I just wish I would have loved to have had like sort of 30 at some stage of the tournament. I would have liked to have had over 30 bigs at some stage,
Right.
just to be able to play and not having to limp on the button with king queen suited, because I had I think I got up to like 23 bigs at one point and limped. I don't know if you remember that hand. There was one hand where I limped on the button with king queen suited, small blind folded, big blind who was a French guy who had like 70 big blinds at that time, checked behind, and it came a king high board with 2 hearts. He checked and I bet, standard bet. I think I actually bet 50% because it was, because there were a few draws out there. And he called. Now it came the queen of spades on the turn, making me 2 pair and hit, and the spade hit as well. The flush hit, and for some reason I don't know, I just didn't feel good about the top 2, and so normally I'd play that really quite aggressively. But anyway, I checked behind. He checked and I checked, and then it came. Hold on, king queen. It came a card on the river, which had I had an ace, I would have had the straight. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember whatever it was. He checked again, and I didn't have the ace. I had 2 pairs, so I just checked behind, and it turned out that he actually had like 2-4 of spades, so he'd made a flush on the turn.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether did it show my hands? Did it show my cards?
No, it didn't show second place, only the winner. Yeah. So
yeah, I thought so. So I had king queen of hearts. So it was quite. I was quite pleased with the way I played that hand in the end. Because I could have gone broke.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a couple times. I wanted to ask you because to some of the people from the newer generation of poker players, I would include myself in that. They may not be familiar with some of your past in the big tournaments.
What? That's disgraceful. What do you mean you're not familiar? You should, No, look, I agree. I've not been on the scene a lot, and I'm not a huge self-publicist like Phil Hellmuth or or similar. Right. So I wouldn't be surprised, if people didn't know who I was.
Well, I think everyone in poker knows who you are, but they might not know that you won £1 million playing on the Isle of Man in a tournament. You finished runner-up to Mike Sexton in the 2003 European Heads Up Championship. Second place in a W Coupe. It's a W Coupe main event, the first one ever. So these are some pretty big games, and I'm curious as to when you were playing back then, as opposed to playing this event now. It's 15 years later or so. How has your mindset changed in that environment? Is it different, or do you approach it really the same way?
No, it has to. No, it's different. Look, there's a lot of it I approach the same way, but I think my awareness of other players at the table has changed dramatically because the game has changed so much. So I do pay it. I think I'm not saying I study a great deal, but I do watch videos, and I used to have like a Run It Once account, so I watch videos there. I really liked Lucas Greenwood's videos on there. I used to watch those a lot. I really liked his. It was very informative, and I think it was really important for me to understand what was going through guys' heads, and when people started talking about ranges, specific ranges and UTG +1 or whatever, I started to look at what people possibly are opening with here, and what are they 3-betting with, and 3-bet. And the thing is, you've probably seen it change even in the time that you've been playing, is that things become more fashionable. People start, I found myself limping on the button where there's no way I would have ever limped on the button with any hand. King Queen. Some people would say, well, actually, with 20, did I have 18 bigs or 20 bigs with King Queen suited? you should be raising all the time. But I fancy, had I raised with that hand, he'd have called. He was defended with 2-4 suited, I imagine. And then I'd be out, probably be out of the tournament, because it would have played a lot stronger then.
Yeah, true.
The whole hand, I'd have bet, pot. He'd probably call, because I probably wouldn't bet the pot. I'd probably bet about 55% or something. He'd call, and then by this time I'm pot committed. But I wasn't there. So I've learned. To answer your question briefly, yes, I've learned a lot from younger players younger than me who've studied it. Studied the game a lot more. And not only studied it, but they've also had groups of friends who they've either been swapping pieces with, or they're in stables, or whatever, where they actually, all they do is talk about poker. So like when I was like a 22 or 23-year-old, me and my mates, we talk about sort of sport and girls.
Right.
These guys would go out, and they'd all be sitting around at the Vic. There's 7 or 8 of them all discussing, what defense frequency is in this particular situation. And you're kind of going, I kind of appreciate that and respect it, but also I also think for a player who doesn't have that group of friends. You see, it's funny because like I've got friends in poker, like say Barney Boatman, for instance. I don't think Barney and I have ever discussed a hand ever.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think we've ever done that. I mean, maybe we have I might have called him a fish calling in some situation, and then he'll try to explain to me why he did it. But I think it's a little bit, sometimes it's a bit off-putting if you're a lone player, right, to see groups of people talking about hand ranges and strategy and things like that, because you do feel a bit. But I've found that I've learned a great deal from players like that, and hopefully some of it's sunk in. I think it has sunk in, because I think it's very difficult to get deep in a tournament with players of that caliber.
Yeah, one like that, very deep structure. 20-minute levels the first day, I think, and then 30 minutes after that. The cream really rises to the crop there. So,
also it's just you've got to remember though, James, is that I'm 61 years old now, and so I get kind of tired. At 3:30, if it's 3:30 in the morning, and I haven't been working those hours, which I don't normally. I'm normally in bed by sort of 11:30. Then I can also get very tired. So actually, last night it finished very quickly yesterday.
Yeah,
I thought. I don't know about what you thought about that, but I think given the money involved,
5.5 hours total.
Yeah, I thought it was really quick.
Yeah,
really, really quick to go down from 27 players to a winner.
Yeah,
it was incredibly quick.
I like that format of
me
playing
too.
less hours but more days. I think that's smart for everyone involved.
No, definitely. I think it's really favorable. And I'm not saying I didn't like it last night. I really enjoyed it, because it was like,
I would hope so.
By 1 o'clock, it was great. But I think it was a classic. It was a classic situation where you had 3 or 4 players who had really stacks.
Right.
And a lot of other players that just didn't have stacks, and it was just very difficult, because just people were just getting knocked out. But the thing is, experience. That's the other thing, is that experience does give you that awareness. So, I would always have the other table. Certainly, when we got down to 2 tables, I would always have the other table open. I'd be looking at what was going on there, what was happening there, in the same way that you would if you were in my situation like that.
Right.
And just laddering up and looking at all the ICM implications. But people were just, the big stacks, quite rightly, were playing quite aggressively and opening much wider than especially on money bubbles. It was great. I really enjoyed it, and learned a lot from it yesterday as well.
So the day after now, almost 900,000 first place score. And I talked to you a little bit about this before, but it's a very common question that I get. Like, what would you do if you had that big of a score? So I'm curious as to, where is your mind today in regards to like the money that comes along with a score like that?
The only thing I'm thinking about is the election and the foreign currency exchange rates. That's all I'm thinking about. All I'm trying to do at the moment is just leverage half of it immediately into sterling, so that because I don't know which way it's going to go. I suspect that the pound will get stronger on tomorrow, or should I say Friday after the results. But so I just want to be. I hate gambling on exchange rates. So I'll just convert 50% of it immediately, then work out what to do with it afterwards. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I think it's look, it's a fair amount. It's a fair amount of money. I haven't really thought about it. Money comes and money goes. It's not. I don't really value money as much as I probably did when I was younger. It is what it is. I'm very fortunate enough to be comfortable. I've got a house, couple of house. I've got a house in London and a house here, and I'm comfortable. So I don't really know what I'll do with it.
Right.
I suspect I'll probably, I don't know what I'll do with it.
I think it's a really cool mindset, and I see a big difference in a lot of professional players and then newer players coming into the game. And that I find new players really are in pursuit of that big score and that life changer, whereas the people that are pro players, and even may not have found themselves in a comfortable spot in life yet, their plan with a big score is typically very different than the amateur, which is like, I'll grow my bankroll, or I'm going to invest it, or the day after is going to be the same. So I was just curious if that was the case with you as well, because I think it's illuminating to a newer player. So was it always like that?
I don't know. I mean, when I won the Poker Million, I think that was, for me at that particular time, that was really life changing, because I was pretty broke. I was directing a TV drama for Channel 4. I was editing a show for Channel 4.
What year was this?
Huh?
What year was this?
2000.
2000. Okay.
Yeah, 2000. Right. So I was directing, and we were editing this show, and anyway, I went to play this tournament, but I was broke. I really didn't have any money. I'd borrowed heavily to buy a house. My children, I had 2 kids. They were both very young, and I really wasn't earning enough money. I had a really heavy mortgage on the house. It was very difficult. Time was hard. And so for me, at the time, poker was really a hobby, because it was something I got into purely because when you're directing TV drama, you might, if you're lucky, you would work 9 months of the year if you were very lucky. Right. More often than not, it would be like 6, 7, 8 months of the year. So during the downtime, I always wanted to have sort of a hobby. And I bumped in, I just saw some guys at the Victoria Casino when I was playing blackjack one day, and that's how I really got into it and learnt about it. And that was, God knows when, 1990s probably. Yeah, but not in the 1990s, early 1990s. And anyway, so when I won that tournament, it made a significant change. It meant I could pay off the debts on the house, put money away to educate the kids, and really I could breathe. It made a massive difference. If you look at, say, Phil Galfon, Jason Kuhn, all these players, Brian Rast, all of them, if you look at them all, Roble, whoever, you go, these guys, they're just never going to go, they're never going to go completely broke, because they're not stupid. They're never going to expose themselves to that much. If they're going to have to play in a really, really big game, then they're going to spread the risk amongst backers. They're not going to take on all the risks themselves. They're astute and sensible. I'm just quite content to walk the dogs and play poker. And also the great thing about poker is if you can play it as a complete game of skill, and you can control it. And if you can play within your bankroll, this is such a crucial thing. It's so crucial. to look at, to go and say, go and have a look at Jonathan Little's bankroll, videos, and say, look, how much, what level if I've got $100 in my account, and I'm sort of 18 years old, and I want to learn to play poker, I want to put $100 in. What size game should you be playing in? Should I sit down in a 50-cent $1 game? No, of course not.
Right. Yeah.
You've got to start really, really small. And for me, I would immediately sit down. I just remember the full tilt days where I would deposit sort of 5K onto full tilt, spin it up to 250K, and then try and find an even bigger game, just the 501K Hold'em game there, just to try to spin it up into 2 million. This is what my life was like. I was just constantly trying to just keep spinning my life up.
It's a different world back then. Like we've changed so much. Do you miss that feeling of poker, like the somewhat degenerate, on the edge craziness?
No,
it's better now.
I miss the laughter and the fun and the joviality that went with that, and the thing is, you've got also the way that I used to play, and still to some extent now, if ever I want a game in a live, I can get into any game anywhere in the world, Jamie. Any game.
I believe it.
I honestly can get into any fucking game anywhere.
Yeah.
Because people know that they might think, oh, he's calmed down a bit, but just you wait. All he has to do is get one bad beat, and he's back to the old John again, Yeah. And it's kind of true. So I have to be that's why I have to be quite careful if I make a score like I did yesterday. In the old days, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. I'd be playing 4 tables of 50, 100 on party. If I try, well, actually, the thing is, the irony is that I could probably get 4 tables of 50, 100 going on party, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'd never run there normally, but if I just sat down there now, I'm sure it would.
They'd fill up, I think. Yeah.
Maybe one or 2 tables. I don't know.
So with that experience over time of going through playing poker for 20 years and having the ups and downs, poker's a very young player base now on average. So do you think there's anything that I'll say we are missing as a younger generation that maybe we didn't get a chance to experience and we're missing out on?
I think one of my I remember having this sort of crisis moment maybe 10 years ago over the EPT and over my endorsing PokerStars and all that sort of stuff, and I was really worried that there was a whole generation of really highly intelligent young men and some women who were dedicating their life to a game which was just all purely about money and not doing anything at all of any value in life. And then suddenly I saw a sort of change in that sort of in the dynamic of the sort of the zeitgeist within the poker community, which was that I think players who'd got to, maybe they'd been playing for 5, 6, 7 years, had got to the age of about 25, 26, suddenly started to realize that they too had started to realize that what they were doing with their lives, 25, 26. And so they started to do things outside of poker, or they started to take other interests. The first thing that happened was that they started to look after their bodies better. Suddenly you'd see guys, working out. Suddenly you went to Vegas and you sit at a poker table and it was all just tiny heads on huge body, huge muscly bodies. Yeah. And you go, what the hell's happened here? Everybody looked like Alex Foxon, It was kind of crazy. But then you thought, well, actually that's good. That's a really good thing. And once people had done that with their physical appearance, because I remember you back in the day when you changed, you changed the way you looked. You went through a very dramatic change in your appearance. You lost a huge amount of weight. Yeah. All credit to you. I mean, I fortunately have never had that issue, that problem. And so, but I really respect and admire people that have that have managed to achieve that. So really well done. But that was going on throughout a lot of young people. So
For sure.
okay,
The health bug in poker was
exactly
big. Yeah.
it was big. But then going back to your question about whether people are missing out, I think there are some players. There are a couple of poker players who've come to me who want to learn how to edit, for instance, and direct and edit. I've spoken to them one of them has actually gone off and started making really interesting documentaries. Very good poker player, but who realised that actually he needed to do something else with his life as well as play poker. I think he's focusing much more on the documentaries now than on the poker, and that's fine. But he may still play. He may not. He may just say, actually, I never want to see a card again in my life. I spent 8 years of my life doing this. I've managed to buy myself a house. That's fine. I think I'm going to go into business now. I'm going to sell, ice cream. I'm going to set up a small business doing, whatever, weed. But I think that. I don't think people have missed out on anything, because I was worried about it at first, and then what made me really feel better about it was that I think that, without mentioning any names, I think that there were quite a large number of poker players, young poker players, who I recognized that poker actually gave them so much more, because they were patently, I'm not going to say that they patently had issues about how they socialized and how they dealt with people. So some would say they had Asperger's, or some would say that there could be issues with autism, things like that, borderline. Some guys, and I watched them grow, and I watched some of these guys grow and become really quite confident at the tables, because they obviously had started playing online.
Right.
They'd found a game that and then they started playing online, and then they would appear and they'd come into a casino somewhere, and you'd see them, and they'd be just terrified. They'd be sitting there, they would never talk to anybody. And slowly but surely, over maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I've watched a lot of these guys, young kids, grow. So I think poker's provided a huge. I think that's something that is provided for a specific group of young men. I don't know whether you have ever thought about that, but I know I have.
Yeah, I mean, something that made me really fall in love with it and pursue it in a big way was in my hometown. A town of 80,000 people, relatively conservative small town in Canada. And I would go play poker at the casino. Just $1, $2. I could buy in for 500 max. And like you said, I was terrified, hands shaking when I first got in there, I freaking out. But I ended up playing this pot limit Omaha game. It was dealer's choice, but everyone choose PLO, maybe a little PLO 8. And I was sitting at a table, and I found myself, beside the biggest land developer in town, a retired dentist, a working doctor, and then also, with probably a pimp, a guy that sells drugs, like just everyone from different cultures as well.
Classless arena. It's a wonderful classless arena of people.
It is. Yeah. It's universal language in the same way that music is, in that we can come together, these people that I would never have the opportunity to engage with or talk with unless I found myself in their, culture or their class in life. But we all came together and we communicated. So that was an opportunity for me to learn about other ways of doing things and other ways of thinking. I think that's so amazing about poker. It's like one of the aspects that isn't appreciated enough by non-poker players, how cool that experience is. So I think that was a big learning process for me, doing that.
What I love about poker, live poker, is that you can go and play poker in any mood you're in. You can, if you don't want to talk to people, you don't have to talk to people. Yeah. If you're manic and you're crazy and you want to go and have a really good time, people, you can have a really good time, and people will, entertain you, and you can entertain them. And nobody cares what mood you're in. You can be famous, you can be, you can be street smart, you can be educated. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. You just have this wonderful group of people, and that's still that's still the case. I think. I think the only thing that has probably changed is that there aren't as many characters as there used to be when I sort of first went there. You know, in the first time, you know, when I was first at the Vic, and there would be such a wonderful selection of criminals, actors, writers, you know, lawyers, doctors, you know, all this bunch of people, but a lot of them had real sparkly characters. A lot of them were as dodgy as fuck, and you have to be really careful, you know, around them. And the cheating that went, you know, because there were self-deal games. I remember my first self-dealed game was with this group of guys, and you dealt yourself, right? And and guys would literally, they'd turn over in 7-card, we would play 7-card stud. They'd turn over their hand, they'd go straight, scoop the pot in and turn their hand over before you even could see if they'd had a straight or not, you know, and shuffle it all into the deck. And you go, what the, yeah. And it was a very steep learning curve, I can tell you right now, but I really enjoyed it. And I still see some of those guys now.
Yeah. Yeah. It still exists. I think to your point earlier about, you know, the poker bubble of having friends that play poker. I can think back to myself being 21, 22. That's all I wanted to talk about too. Because poker was like my ability to make something of myself and have an opportunity. So that's all I was interested in talking about or doing. So at the table, all I talked about was poker. And that's kind of annoying if you play poker for fun. You know, you don't want to talk about strategy or ranges or get ridiculed about things. So what other
interests do you have, or have you had, or?
So I wanted to be a professional golfer growing up. So that was like 5 or 6 years. I kind of full-time trying to become Tiger Woods. Realized at 18 that wasn't going to happen. You know, I wasn't Tiger. So yeah, golf was the thing for me for like about 6 years. It's kind of sad realizing I wasn't going to make it. So I got into partying, you know, going out, drinking, smoking, you know, hanging out with girls for about 6 or 7 months. And then I found poker. So I've been like very obsessive personality, like one track most of my life. And most of my struggles are trying to figure out how to balance. But it's been really golf, partying, and then poker for the last 10 years.
Which is nice. It's nice. It's a nice thing to do. And do you have? I mean, I know it's not me interviewing you, but I just think it's interesting because I'm a great believer in reinventing yourself, because I've done so many things in my life. Poker's always been on the peripheral. You know, I've done so many things business-wise, and I just really like the idea of reinventing yourself every 5 years. And you know, like at the moment, I'm trying to work out what to do next. You know, poker. I'll always be involved in poker, but you know, a couple of years ago, I went back to directing drama and did a Netflix and ITV drama series, or did the last 2 episodes of the series.
Oh wow! I didn't know
and
that.
really got into it again, and was starting to think, well, actually, maybe I'll do a film of something. You know, maybe I'll do a film of my own where I actually it's about something that I want to make a film about, rather than directing things for other people. You know, or maybe I'll do something altogether different. I don't know. Maybe I'll set up a company with my son, one of my sons. You know, I don't know. So, I had this idea the other day. I think it would be a really nice idea to deliver, you know, water in the same, you know, to fresh water to people, rather than using plastic bottles of water. Just have everybody have glass bottles in their houses. You know,
right.
Large bottle. You know, large what do they call, water coolers? You know. And just get rid of plastic, using plastic altogether in water. These sort of things. So I'm always trying to work out what to do next, and I think it's nice. I think it's good to do that. I think it's really refreshing to always be looking forward, because you can't get old if you always look forward. I think for me, the definition of old age is when you start looking back. You know, you should always be looking for new ideas. And I certainly had no intention of getting back into the poker business post EPT. You know, the EPT had taken up a lot of my life, and I had no intention of doing that. And that's really why I'd gone back into directing. You know, but when Tom Waters and Rob Young and another couple of guys from Phone Me Up had this call in January 3 years ago, I just thought, well, I really, I like these guys, particularly like Rob, and and Tom. But I didn't know Tom. I've known Rob for a long time, and I've always liked him. Tom I didn't know very well, but I really like Tom. I think he's such a nice guy and really, hardworking, very creative, loves the game, and has surrounded himself with some really dedicated people, at Party Poker, and likewise Rob at Party Poker Live. Right. And so that's really that was the reason I got back into it. And I really don't do that much. I'm much more of a figurehead with Party Poker Live. I don't really do a great deal. It's not like they're on the phone to me every single day asking where we should go, what we should do, which venue, what about this venue and that venue. They picked my brains for the first year or two and then realized it was probably all a bit stale and decided to just do it themselves, so, but they, occasionally Rob and I will have discussions about things. But look, he's a great guy, and I think he actually got he was getting a bit of grief actually last week. I don't know if you saw it. There's some guy who's gone on about Party Poker scamming. Didn't you see that thing?
I saw that. There was a blog post where he wrote, Party Poker scam ? Or something like that.
And then Rob reacted in a sort of look. What appeared to other people, it would seem like a really arrogant way to say, right, okay, look, I'll pay you your money back, and I'll just take you off the site. Now, what you have to realize, if you know Rob, I think I know Rob well enough to know that he's not doing that from his own point of view. He's doing that because he knows that there are hundreds of people working really hard to try to make Party Poker better.
Right.
No, obviously they're paid to do that, and they're trying to do it for because they love it. But the majority of them really love the game, and they want it to be, they want to make it better. And I think Rob is very good at defending people who are very loyal to him. Okay.
Right.
And that's something I really admire about people. And his reaction there is just absolute loyalty to his staff and the people that work around him, and the people that work for Party Poker as well. And his anger and his knee-jerk reaction there is all about that. Now, I don't know what's happened since then. I think there's been some gripings that some guy, Philip, what's his name, from ACR has been going on about it, trying to capitalize on it. Now, look, ACR are doing whatever ACR do, they do. The Venoms are obviously very popular, people like that. That's fine. Just get on, you just mind your own house and get on with and run a business the way that you want to do it. And we just will do what we carry on doing. It's just one of those things. And so, look, it's not an ego thing. It's just protecting his peer group. I respect him for that, and it's good.
Yeah. To give a little context to anyone that missed that, there was a player that was playing satellites after they already won a seat to day 1A. Unaware that they couldn't win a additional seat to day 1A with the satellites. So that was the thing. And basically that's been in the terms of service for about 6 months now on other events. But I see the point of not being able to know that if you haven't played a lot on Party Poker over the last 6 months. So I get that point. So the player released the blog saying Party Poker scam. And Rob said, you're right. You shouldn't be able to register if you already have a seat. I thought that was going to be fixed, but it wasn't. So I'm going to refund you $10,000 from my own pocket. But because you released this blog post calling us a scam, I've asked them to close your account following your play of day 1A. Since then, it seems like everything's been squashed. He learned from some players that this guy's okay. So everything seems fine between the two of them, and it's all set. But to me, I thought that was and I've known Rob for not very long, you know, like 8 months. But coming into this environment, I see like he has this group of people that are very passionate around him, like you said, and like he's worked with for a long time and he trusts and he believes in.
Yeah.
And that was like a live poker response to me, which is if you run a club and someone comes into your club and says, this is shit, you know, I don't like any of you, I don't like this. We're just like, okay, well then don't come back here. You're not welcome.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. You know, whereas online, as an online provider, people are like, what do you mean? You know, this is an internet company. Like you know, so that reaction was...
I have a right to play here.
Exactly.
I have a right.
Yeah.
Don't you think though? The thing that I actually find quite pathetic though is I don't know the guy. I don't even know the guy's name. But the thing is, what I don't like about is about it's a generational thing. Is that there are some people that will just go onto social media and start literally bleating and blame, you know, going on about companies because I don't know they've lost some ticket issue at American Airlines or something.
Yes,
they suddenly go on and they say scamming this and scamming that. Just deal with it with the company themselves. I think there's an issue. This shaming, this whole thing about shaming, or it's a little bit like people sticking their hand up in the classroom, you know, of the teacher. It's just not a good look, guys. You know, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't make you look good. You look kind of pathetic, I think. You know, with that sort of behavior. I think you should just go direct to a company and just say, look, this happened. Don't try and shame them.
Right. Yeah. Well, and does it accomplish the you know, what is the end goal as well? You know, like what do you get equity wise out of shaming a company? You know, is it going to get you any money, or is it I often think about that as well. Like if you have an issue,
intention, isn't it, to get money for yourself? It's not you're not really doing it for other people. You're just doing it for yourself.
Yeah. So that did happen. Thankfully, it seems like everything is sort of sorted, but I share your sentiments on that. So I should let you go pretty soon, but given that you have such an extensive history in producing and editing, I wanted to get your thoughts on today's poker content. You know, that's something I'm in, and I think there's a lot of attention today on Twitch and YouTube when it comes to, you know, getting the word out about poker. It's very different than how things were back when you were, you know, the head of the EPT and producing those shows. It's not centralized. It's a lot cheaper. It's faster. It's quick, and it's person to person. So, what do you think about today's poker content? And where should it go from here, in your opinion? If you could run it, what's going to be most effective?
I think it's a very difficult one because I'm of the opinion that I think it's very I think it's really tough because back in the day, okay, when the EPT and WPT started, poker was every channel, you know, as soon as the travel channel got WPT, everybody started watching it. It was fascinating. Well, actually, let's start with late night poker here. Late night poker in the UK.
Is that where you walk down the stairs? That one? Was it that cash game?
No, it was where literally it was on at midnight, and it was a cash game, and it was on Channel 4, I think it was in England, and it had all these personalities on it like Devilfish and Pete the Bandit and all these great characters, Simon Trumper. And Barney Boatman, I think Barney, you know, Barney, all these players, and it was just fascinating to watch. People were sitting there smoking at the tables. Now, obviously, nobody knew what was really going on, and so it was interesting. And it used to get 1 million viewers then, you know, which was a lot of viewers at midnight on a single channel. So, and then the travel channel came along, and obviously WPT was great. It suddenly made poker really exciting. It made it like a game show. It was everybody was wanting to learn the game, and suddenly combined with online poker, everybody could do it. It was all this huge perfect storm type situation. You know, the travel channel was buying the content, you know, then after a while, all these channels like Fox FSN and all the channels here in the UK, they suddenly cottoned on to the fact that actually all these online poker sites were competing against each other for marketing. Marketing. They wanted to get on television with their brand. And so they started charging huge amounts of money to get. They didn't, you never got paid. Post 2005, no channel paid for poker content.
Right.
It was all advertiser funded, so it was all paid for. EPT paid for 100% by PokerStars, 100%. The getting it onto the channel, you had to commit to advertising on the channel to get your program on. So you either had to pay for advertising during the breaks, or you had to pay for the break bumpers either side of the show.
Wow.
All this sort of crap started going on. It was and so people were having to pay huge sums of money to get their product onto the television here and in the US. So, but the quality. Everybody wanted to watch it. Then everybody was interested in watching it. Then it all changed, and viewing figures went right down, and even the channels couldn't really justify having these programs on because nobody was watching them. Nobody cares anymore about your average viewer in the UK. If you went around the streets now, nobody really gives a shit about watching poker on television. Even poker players don't really want to watch poker on television. What they do want to watch, I think, is the content. It's really good content where the commentary is so crucial. You really have got to have top draw commentators discussing absolutely in detail what the thought processes of every single player at the table in this particular situation.
Right.
It used to be just ace king against jacks all in. Oh wow, babe! But clap every guns and oh what a great hand. That's changed now. You can't do that anymore. You have to go into the thought. The market is now players. You've got 100 million people that have played poker at some time in their lives throughout the world. That's a pretty big. That's a huge potential audience for a streaming site like PokerGo, for instance. But in order to keep people interested, you've got to make the content really not only really high quality, and I think they're doing a great job with some of their secondary content as well. I think some of the documentaries they have, the life stories, some of even the dramas that they're doing, are good. They're really good. I think Maury and all the guys at PokerGo are trying to doing a really good job there. But as a business model, does it work? I don't know. Right. I don't. How many people are going to subscribe to it for the whole year? I don't know. It can't be that many. And will a poker site pay to be on PokerGo if they know that only, I don't know how many people are watching it?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Really, you need to know, and that's the value of something. So. It's going to change, and I think that it'll become a niche product for people in the same way that the Golf Channel is, for people who watch the Golf Channel, watch golf. I don't know if there's a chess channel or something like that, but any sort of hobby, I think it'll just become like that, and that people will watch it. But you have to, in order to keep people interested, you have to have really good commentary, and I think they do a good job, and I think getting people in who really know what they're. I like, without blowing smoke up your ass, I like listening to you talking about hands, and I think it's important. There was one point, because last night I was watching you and talking about. I remember getting quite angry at one point. The director in me was coming out,
right?
Because you were talking about you and Moni, you were talking about New York when there was a hand on in the background,
yeah. And
I was saying, for fuck's sake, start talking about the hand, will you? This is really interesting. And I was going, and you were waffling. Both of you were, well, actually, Moni was waffling on about New York, and eventually I turned the sound down. I was getting so angry.
Yeah.
And I was going, and so that was the director in me just saying that, So it's really important that people talk about because people want to learn. I want to learn. if I'm going to pay a subscription to watch poker, I'm not watching it to see Antonio Sfandiari, bless him, and Phil Lack throw eggs at each other or roll on the floor. You know, that's all been done before. Nobody wants to see that anymore. You know, the entertainment, it just doesn't happen. You know, if you're watching Rob's game last night, I watched a bit of it. All right, so it's okay, you know. But you only get a few funny guys on there. You know, Randall Emmett is I like Randall. He's a funny guy. I like him. I think he's really entertaining. But really, I watched a little bit of it last night, and frankly, I got bored. Rob will hate me for saying this, but I just got bored. I didn't really enjoy what I was watching. I just thought, I'm not learning anything here. You know, I'm not learning anything, and I want to learn. I'm looking at a poker game now to learn. So you need to look at the content you're making for your audience, and if your audience is paying a subscription-based audience, they're doing that because they want to learn more about the game. Okay, and if they want to subscribe to they want to laugh and have fun, they'll subscribe to the comedy channel. Right. Now I think people want to learn about the game. Of course, you can have some entertainment as well. That I think is the future of streamed poker content.
Okay, that's very interesting.
That's my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. No, I think I would have gone counter to that before I had this conversation with you, but it gives me a lot of thought because, to me, I thought learning was, and there's a lot of concern in poker about learning being not approachable. You know, when you talk about higher level poker concepts, that can be scarier to a newer audience. That's at least what you hear a lot. You know, streamers talk about that a lot as well. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense in that people want to improve. So it's an interesting dynamic of how do you allow the audience to improve, and what level do you set that at to where it can be understood, but how do you go so in depth that it's more interesting than, you know, like the banter at the table or something that we've all seen before?
Well, I think it's really difficult, but you know, I hate stalling, but you know, for the sake of it. But I watched a high stakes game on PokerGo a few months ago. I think there were Jason Kuhn, there was a lot of some other guys. It was a really interesting lineup. Okay, really interesting. And there were certain periods of that broadcast which for me were fascinating, because there was people had a very significant decision to make, right? And so there was a lot of, you know, maybe it was 2, 3, 4 minutes of thinking time, right? And what was happening, what was interesting, was that Nick Schulman, that's right, yeah. He was providing this wonderful sort of commentary, very laconic commentary about the thought process that maybe was going through Jason Kuhn's brain at this particular moment. I loved this. It was really, really dramatic. It really worked for me as a poker player, as a subscriber. I want to see more of that. I don't want to see, I'm really sorry, I don't want to see old high stakes poker lineups. I don't want to see this crap anymore. I've seen enough of it. I think people are making mistakes thinking that we're going to get more people into this by having the people being clowns on TV. It's gone. It was great when it happened. I think people like Antonio, Phil Lack, they did a great job back in the day. All right, they did a really good job, and they made poker fascinating. They drew a lot of people in. Daniel does the same. Daniel's great, and you know, on live poker, or you know, it was. But I think even Daniel's starting to be thinking more about the game itself and talking about no re-entries and things like that. You know, I think look. I actually am a big look. I go hot and cold on Daniel. Sometimes he really annoys me, and sometimes I really, really like him. And you know, I was watching his blog from the WSOPE. I don't know if you watched any of it.
Yeah, I watched a few. Blogs? Yeah.
I really like his blogs. I mean, I got really angry with him at one point when he was going on about smoking, because I was still smoking then. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And I was saying, you can't spit at the camera like that, Dan. You know, he's spitting at the camera. And I was saying, my God, man, what are you doing? You're like a man possessed. You've gone psychotic. You know. But then later in the series, you'll see him go, look, okay, I know people know I go crazy about smoking. I go psychotic. I go a bit mad. But like he talks about, he's entertaining because he talks about what he feels strongly about. Okay, and sometimes, you know, and I kind of, you know, there are times when he's doing it, when he's entertaining. There are times I think he's better than he used to be. I think there were a few years ago. I think he became he'd probably say it himself. He was a bit of a dick sometimes, but now I think he was quite. I actually found him quite likable during the WSOPE blogs. They were good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have a lot of respect for Daniel just because I don't think I'd be playing poker if it wasn't for him. You know, like I read his books and stuff. So, you know, I don't agree with a lot of his takes. I used to be a smoker as well. I quit about 5 months ago, and I've seen him tweet some things like, you know, about smokers that basically like, and I was just like, wow, okay, I take that as a personal attack. You know, I didn't know that's such a terrible person. You know, and I disagree with
it's really, you're like the devil. It's incarnate. I mean, it's really the spitting at the camera that I couldn't believe it. I was just absolutely horrified, but you know, whatever.
Yeah. But I also don't like the flip side, which is, you know, so many of the younger generation of players just like trying to tear into him week after week after month after month after year, because I think it's too much. And coming from golf, there's this level of respect that is earned from people that have put in their time and their dues. And to me, he's one of those people that deserves a minimum level of respect for what he's done for the game and stuff. So I always carry that around in regards to him.
Agree. I absolutely agree with you there completely. And I think boy, does he wear it well. I couldn't hack that constant barrage of hatred from some people. I'm far too thin-skinned to, you know, I just switch off, you know. I think I'd just get off. I'd get off Twitter. I'd get off social media altogether. I'd say, right, I can't be bothered with this.
Tap out, but back to directing or something. Yeah.
He battles on, you know. He doesn't. He's. I admire him for that. For heaven's sake, it's incredible. You know, amazing.
John, I should let you go. We've been talking for just over an hour now, but I really appreciate you taking the time and speaking with me. I thought it was awesome. Huge congrats on your 5th place yesterday as well.
Thank you very much. I mean, it was fun, and thank you for giving me some company while I was playing. You know, it was nice to. I like what I've realized. I like doing is actually watching Twitch streamers whilst I'm playing on a Sunday, because I really only play on a Sunday now,
right?
Or tend to, or big tournaments, and. For me, it's really nice to watch people like you. Well, so I watch Jeff. You know, I think it's quite comforting. You know, even sometimes I'll watch Lex, because I find Lex quite entertaining. You know, right. I think he's very funny, and I don't look. Okay, so he bats for the other team. That doesn't worry me. You know, because I really like Lex as a person. You know, my feelings for you. Look. My own feeling is that party poker is going to dominate the poker industry within the next 2 years. That's what I am hoping, because that's what we want. You know, that's what we want to do, and we love the game. And you know, we just need to just carry on going the way we're going. And you know, maybe Lex will be with us. Who knows? In a few years' time,
you never know. I'm a big Lex fan too. As roommates, he's a great guy. So.
Oh, you were his roommate.
We lived together for a little while in Costa Rica. Yeah, we did a bit of travel 2 years ago. I never knew that.
No, I'm a big fan. I've always liked him. He's good fun.
Yeah, it's a good community out there. You know, no matter what team you're working with, like all of us streamers are friends generally, and you know, it's just it's good that there's competition now. You know, it was very one-sided. You know, PokerStars had the market completely, and no one was really investing in the space. So you know, Party Poker and recently GG and Natural 8, you know, are starting to invest, and it's just healthy for everyone. So,
and it's a great skill actually as well. I mean, I tried to do it once.
My chat told me this. Why don't you get out there?
Oh no,
that could be the next 5 years.
And you know, first of all, I couldn't bear the idea of just chatting into thin air.
Right.
When they were like, I could see that 3 people were watching, and I didn't even know if they spoke English.
Right.
And I just thought, what the hell, you know? There was no. I was getting no feedback, and I thought, why am I, you know? Because I considered twitching yesterday's, you know, play.
Right.
And then I thought, well, actually, there's a lot of money involved here, and for me, it's very. I find it really distracting. There's something wrong with my setup here, which means that when I've got OBS running, it all gets, everything starts playing up a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's sort of, it's suddenly, because I've got 3 screens, it suddenly starts to slow down and things start to jerk around a bit when I'm streaming. So I just thought, actually, I can't be bothered with it. And also I live in the country, so I've got to switch to, I can't, you know, my broadband doesn't work, so I've got to switch to like a 4G dual SIM card setup that I've got here just as a backup. You know, it's all a bit fiddly, but boy, it's hard work, mate. I take my hat off to you. I think it's really difficult to do. You know,
it's a lot of talking.
for so many hours. You know, I don't know how you do it. You do it really well, by the way.
Cheers, thank you. I mean, that's where the talking from New York comes from. That's why we have to talk about not poker, because sometimes you just can't drone on about poker for 5 hours. It's too much.
I agree, but I think when there's a hand going on in the background, which is a significant hand, I think you have to. You spotted it, by the way.
Yeah.
If you remember, you probably remember it.
Yes, I do remember.
It,
yeah.
Your instinct came up and said, you know, straight. You know, you had the instinct as well. It was a bless her. She was just waffling on about shopping in Bloomingdale's or something like that. I don't know. It was
right. Yeah. At some point this year, we're gonna get cards up replays on Party Poker. So when that happens, it'll be a lot. You know, we'll be able to spot big hands before they come. So.
I think that'll be much more. It'll be much more interesting when you know. With having cards up replays, I think it's, you know, they are interesting.
Yeah.
Right, great to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it. Congratulations, and we'll speak to you again soon. The live poker hand of the week. We have a really interesting one from the Caribbean Poker Party, so let's just jump into it. So we're going to start off this hand actually on the flop, and we have Christopher, also known as Big Honey, under the gun. We have Aaron in the cutoff. And we have Adrian Mateos in the big blind. Now, the flop is extremely lethal here. Big Honey with the ace-queen, flopping the top pair with a second nut kicker. Also has some very interesting flush cards here. The backdoor queen of spades and the ace of diamonds blocker if that flush draw comes in. Aaron with the middle set of fives. And Adrian Mateos missing the flop here. Can't continue 3 ways. So we see a bet from Aaron on the flop. Big Honey doesn't really have a choice here. There's no reason for him to raise with the ace-queen. It's a very strong hand, but Aaron is either going to be betting really strong hands, but also value betting weaker hands as well, value betting those, and bluffing as well. So just check call, see a turn. Turn is a pretty safe 7 of diamonds. You have to think that Big Honey raised under the gun and Aaron called in the cutoff. There's not going to be a lot of like 3-4 suited or 4-5 suited or 6-4 or deuce-4. Like, that isn't going to happen in these positions. You could see it in a big blind in some situations, but not here. So the digits that are at the bottom, they aren't too relevant. You're not going to see any straights in that card. Aaron has an easy bet with the third set at this point. Big Honey, ace-queen, love and life. Isn't scared at all at this point. I call. And there we see the call going to the river, which is a very interesting 6 of diamonds. Now, it does bring in some of the straights, but again, we don't expect our opponents to have those straights very often. The most interesting factor here is the flush. The diamond completes, and you look at Christopher Big Honey's hand, he has the ace of diamonds. Now, Aaron, of course, with the set, still can feel pretty comfortable with his hand. You know, you've got to expect you have the best of it most of the time here. We don't expect Big Honey to be raising very many straights and get to the river from under the gun here. So really, the only hand you're losing to is a backdoor flush, and you have a set. So you bet. You feel good. Now action back here on Big Honey. And some of you may be thinking, oh, you kind of got a call here. You have ace-queen. But when we think about it, is Aaron going to be betting a worse hand on the flop into 3 people, on the turn, and then on the river? Is an ace-jack going to do that? And is an ace-10? No, that's a little bit too light. So really, Big Honey has a bluff catcher. But he also has the ace of diamonds in his hand, meaning that Aaron can't have the nut flush. So maybe Big Honey could go for a raise here and actually turn his ace-queen into a bluff. Being one of the very best players, playing the highest stakes games, highest stakes tournaments out there.
Like, say 6-7 of diamonds that might bet the flop and taken off. Is obviously blocked by. There you go. He's done it.
We will see in a second.
Duthie does do it.
That he picks it up.
Love this.
And he moves all in with the ace-queen. Absolutely incredible play here. I love it with this ace of diamonds. I mean, it takes a ton of guts as well, deep in this tournament, to be able to go for the shove and actually bluff with pair of aces and a queen kicker. I mean, incredible play. One that I certainly would miss in real time. I couldn't take credit for this. And a tough spot for Aaron with the set of fives. And he folds. I mean, I can't fault him. It's just one of those spots like, do people bluff here? You know, does the ace-queen really bluff here? Give it to Big Honey for getting it done and finding the shove there. Incredible play and proving he's one of the very best out there right now on the circuit. I want to send out a big thanks again to John Duthie for coming on the podcast, taking the time, literally the day after a huge score like that, 860,000. You can tell he's got some experience in the ability to just transition from that craziness into completely normal life, you know? That's something I don't think I would have the ability to do. So I really appreciate you taking the time, John. Thank you very much for that. This is going to be it for the week, but one more thing before we go. We have the JS Poker Hero competition. We're giving away a $215 million ticket. So the Party Poker Million every week, 1 million guaranteed, $215 buy-in. One of you is going to get a ticket. All you have to do is use the hashtag JSPokerHero on Twitter. And what I want to see this week is your best Christmas poker photo. So get festive for me. Christmas is right around the corner. Hashtag JSPokerHero. Send me your best poker Christmas photo. And we're going to pick a winner, and you're going to be our representative in the $215 million. That's going to be it for this week. Thank you all so much for checking out the show. Any feedback you have, I'd love to hear it as I continue to try and improve in this whole podcasting thing. But that's going to be it. So thanks so much for watching. Until next week, we'll see you later.